meter tal vez tienes que quitar la música y eso, ¿ves?
Empieza 6 minutos todavía.
Bueno.
Hola a todos. Good afternoon. En esta ocasión voy a tratar de hablar un poquito de repente en inglés porque tenemos un YouTube Live en inglés. I know that my English is not perfect. I'll do my best. Quisiera primero que nada explicarles la forma de cómo poner traducción simultánea al español a toda la gente que quiere escuchar la plática en español. Si están en la computadora, abajo, del lado derecho, hay un mundo donde dice interpretación y le dan clic en español. En el celular hay 3 puntitos donde dice más, dice interpretación de lenguajes, le aprietan y le dan español. Es muy importante que sepan que de igual forma van a escuchar también a Nissim Black atrás para que no me escriban por WhatsApp que se escucha. Sí, yo no puedo hacer nada al respecto. Yo sé que se escuchan las dos, pero siempre el traductor se escucha mucho más fuerte y normalmente se escucha muy bien. Tenemos YouTube Live en inglés completamente y tenemos Tutorial TV en español para la persona que se le dificulte escuchar por aquí por Zoom. So first of all, I would like, as always, to thank Hashem for this great opportunity every Sunday to have thousands of people hearing and listening stuff that goes to their heart. I would like to thank my team of Sharei Chesed, a great team that makes everything possible with Hashem's help, obviously. I would like to thank the diffusers that are the ones that make us reach every spot. And if we don't get there, they make sure that we get there. If you would like to be part of our team and help us to reach more people and make people change their lives, please be in touch with me. I would like to thank everybody of you for being here every Sunday, for sharing stories so we can do it on another Sunday or something like that. I would like to thank Mr. Aaron Fogelstone. He's the one that is like the manager of Nissim Black, and he's been helping us with everything. I would like to thank Chacham Abraham Cohen, the translator. And I will tell you that when we finish with Nissim's words, we will put you a video of his video. It's a video clip of his feelings when he reached God. It's really a great video. I really recommend it to you. Okay, and I would like to thank Nissim. We had a Zoom and he's so nice. When I told you we are very excited, he told us, I don't think that more excited than me. And he told us that he's here to share his life with all his heart and to make a great Kiddush Hashem and bring us closer to Hashem. So I will leave you with a video clip first of all, for all the people that doesn't know Nissim Black, to see who he is and who he has become. And after that, we're gonna start listening to Nissim's story. Thank you for everything, and I hope you enjoy.
This place is a dope. We are royalty. We must go back to our place in Kiswana.
No. We are staying right here. This is the motherland. Yeah, here we go. For the motherland. Yeah, we gon' play it loud until they feel it, yeah. Yeah, we gon' blow the roof up off the building, yeah. Yeah, we gon' play that motherland bounce. Check it out now, motherland bounce. Check it out now, motherland bounce. We Baba, Black and Yiddish, I've been with a Sammy Davis cousin. Tried to dodge the industry, but now my name is buzzing. They all saying that I'm conscious, I say that it's nonsense. It's my hope that I know you, my desire that I show you, gratitude that I owe you. Cause I was in that creeper's no-go until you came and dust off and revealed my spark. I was searching for the essence of existence, wanted to find you, but I didn't see an entrance. I came from a distance where everything was different. I called out to you and you showed me that you listen. From then we became best friends. I gave my all to you when you showed me who I am. I am staying by your side to bask in your light and your mercy I reside. Yes, you are my only help. God, please help me, 'cause I'm low and falling down, and I need you to pull me out, 'cause I just wanna grow, yeah. I want you to take control, yeah, and have mercy on me. Will you pick me up again?
That's that 120 music.
I'm on it like you on it. I be there like Jackson 5. You waiting, but you can't sit. I'm running behind the lines. Good things be so hard to find. You know I be with you. We been cool since 99. We done had some issues. Everything we been through ain't nothing but a test of faith. We know that God sent you. We ain't failed it, we just cried. I have cycles on my side. Yes, I changed the way I think, but I still have you here inside. Near and wide, river flowing, hop inside. You know you so special. I left you for a few years and I really regret those. I can't make it up to you, but I can do my best though. I'ma show you to the world I'm holding. I won't let. If they let us sing, I came for the dub but not for the L. If they move it slow, then we gonna propel. I'm feeling so stuck like I'm lost in the jail, but I take a breath and then I exhale. I only go when I know that he's there, 'cause he in my heart, so I never get scared. If I'm feeling some way, then of course I'ma share, and I gotta do it like nobody cared. I wanna.
Okay, Nissim, we're all yours. We're ready to listen to you.
Okay, we're good to go. You guys can hear me okay?
Yeah, perfect. Perfect, thank you. בהצלחה.
So I want to thank everybody who's watching. I certainly would love to thank you, to Linda, and thank you to the Shara Chesed institution that that helped put this together. And thank you to Shim for he's bringing us all together. I want to say maybe about maybe two years ago, or maybe almost maybe a year and a half or something. It could be 2 years now. That I was I don't know. There was maybe about 2 years ago or so that I was in, or a year and a half, that I was in Gibraltar. And while I was there in Gibraltar, by bar mitzvah, I met a rabbi from Panama. I'm very sorry, I forgot what his name was, but it was an awesome experience. And we talked a lot about, he's there in Panama. He told me beautiful things about the community, and he threatened me that he was going to bring me to Panama. It didn't happen yet, but I still take his threat very serious. And unfortunately, because of the conditions and the way that Hashem would have it to be, we're not able to be together, but we're together virtually. And Baruch Hashem, that's the first start. So may this be, Bezat Hashem, the first step for us actually being able to meet and to relate and be in touch with each other in person. My story and my journey is one that you will not find every day. I myself I lived through my story, so it's hard for me to find it as interesting as everybody else seems to find it interesting because I lived through it. But being able to see how much it's affected and how many people it's helped, I can't help but to keep sharing it and keep giving it over and adding even more details. And with the Shim's help, not only will we be able to get to inspiration, but we'll be able to be mamshech, even more things and more stories that hopefully help everybody. My story and my journey begins in Seattle, Washington, far up in the northwest of America, and I was born into a family, to a mother and father, who at the time were both drug dealers. Both my mother and my father sold drugs. I was exposed to a life of the what we call the street life very, very early on. So there was no real room, in terms of Piteva nature, that would say that my life would come to be what it is right now today. I witnessed after my parents split, my mother later on remarried, and same story. I was exposed to a lot of gun violence, gang violence, and drug dealing and different things like that. Not only things that I saw inside the home, but the things I also seen in the neighborhood, things that I was out. So finding out that this way of living became what you would call normal, and it was very, very hard to imagine too many different things outside of that, because after all, this is what you know. It would be like, I always say that, it would be like going from, you guys from Panama, so I hope you have some understanding of these two things. If not, you may have to Google them. But I always say that, going to elementary school was like going from, the magic school bus to coming back home and walking into, Scarface's dining room. Drugs, all over the table, guns and people rolling dice outside, and loud music playing. My house was sort of like the center for not just trafficking, but it was also the place that people would come, just to have a good time. My parents were very open and welcoming, so it happened a lot of times that people could be easily up to 20, 30 people in my house, you know what I'm saying? And maybe 40 that came through the day just because of the activities that were going on. So my house was always busy. I was always around people. And so I think one of the things that did for me emotionally, as a kid, was it put me in a place of suppressing feelings, not always being very open about the way I felt about things. And I got used to crowds. So and I was used to a lot of it or whatever. So when it came to certain things in life where I had to function, had to be alone, that was uncomfortable for me. But continuing with the exposure, I think also when I was around 8 years old, we were battle ran by the FBI. I woke up to everybody around me with guns on them, and zip tied handcuffs. My mother would have dressed with the gun on her, and I remember the police officer getting me dressed, the FBI agent actually, getting me dressed, and then sending me off to school. And when I left, everybody was in handcuffs. I had no idea who was going to be around by the time I got back. But you can imagine after something like that, whether you think you send a kid to school, the most traumatic experience that I just had. And I remember coming back home. I think everybody was gone except for my mother. But this was the type of things that I was exposed to very early on as a child, and that led to us in my neighborhood. It's so interesting now because it's been gentrified and it's nothing like it used to be. But there was always guys out hanging out, the older people, whatever, big gangs, gang members and different things like that. So we started our own gang when we were young, and we'll go and fight with other guys from the other side of the neighborhood and different things like this. It's talking 8, 9 years old. So we're doing just replicating the things that we were seeing, between that and entertainment and everything else that we were seeing. So it later happened around this time also that my grandfather, he came to live with us. Now this was huge because although my grandfather, rest in peace, was a gangster himself from the very old school. He grew up South Side Chicago. He was serious business. I remember as a kid him telling me, when I was younger, son, I used to really like to kill people. He told me this as a kid. I was 8 years old when he told me this. So you talk about shock and like I said, exposure. But also my grandfather was the first one of the first people that was a religious person also too. He has spent a great deal of his time in prison, even most of his life. He probably spent in prison, which is eventually where he passed away at. He he became a Muslim, a Sunni Muslim in prison, and so when he came to live with us at this time, I started to pray with him 5 times a day. He would take me to the mosque, and he told me I was a Muslim, and so I believed him. And my parents weren't religious, and so therefore it didn't really affect them. They didn't care what was going on because they didn't have any regard for it so much anyway. So at this point, my grandfather, I want to say maybe around 10, he ended up going back to prison on a probation violation, and eventually he would be there, for many years until he passed away, unfortunately. And so for myself, until at least I was 13 years old, or 13 or maybe 14. If anybody had asked me what my religion was, I would tell them I was a Muslim. I used to know a little bit of Arabic when I was a kid because when he taught me how to pray and make blessings of food and it was in Arabic. But I lost that by now. But he was still very lovable and charming type of person, very, very charming type of person. So, and because of that also too, it was hard for me to ever disappoint him. I never wanted to disappoint him or whatever. So he would call me sometimes from prison and salam alaikum, walaikum salam, whatever. And we would talk, and he wouldn't talk to me until I would answer him back like that. So that was the most that I was staying involved. Outside of that, by this time, I was already getting into hanging out with the wrong crowd, doing the wrong things. So my 13th, the year I turned 13 was a very, very big year for chemical imbalance, as I would call it. Teenage years started off, and I didn't wait to start flipping out. By the time I was 13, I ended up getting expelled from the Seattle School District. I ended up getting expelled from the Seattle School District. And so that was very, very hard for me. Recently I spoke to somebody about that being expelled, where and how I looked at forgiveness after that, because nothing I could do could get me back into the school district that, for the rest of at least my middle school years in Seattle was divided by 6th, 7th, and 8th grade was, a separate school. That was your middle school years. So that time was very, very hard for me to understand, forgiveness and who I was, because really inside, I always felt like I was putting on the front and I wasn't being who I really wanted to be. The truth was that I really was a person with a very, very soft heart. I was a truth seeker. I was a person that really oftentimes I found myself scared. I was scared for people. I had a lot of fear of death or doing the wrong thing and different things like that. So, but a lot of it I would mask it and trying to pretend and to be something that I wasn't, just because everybody else seen it. I didn't hide too much from some people though, because my family always knew. I know how to turn it on and turn it off. When I was around, older aunties, families, and different things like that, I wasn't behaving anywhere near like like I was behaving when I left the house, and so I would be praised often in the house because they thought I was such a good kid. By the time I go out, I pull a bandana out of my head, whatever, and really they couldn't fault me because this is what I seen. Eventually, as I got older, it ended up coming out. But so I tried my best to put on one way at home and then somewhere else, and then eventually, these two worlds. So back to 13, I ended up getting expelled from the school district for threatening somebody with a gun. And that put me out of the school district. I ended up going to another school that was like an alternative school that was for people who ended up couldn't go to a regular school. That did not help the case. I was only around more gangs, more violence, more anger. I would rob people before I would go to school. On my way home, if I didn't have the money, I'd could take a knife and, and take somebody's bus. I was just hanging around the wrong guys and not doing the right thing. And every bad, I would say person that, not the person, I don't want to say bad person, but every bad influence that I could have been around, I was around in the school. So a beautiful thing happened also to my that year. That year, a friend of mine got got wind, he knew I was into music. He was also into music. And he invited me to this hip hop program that was taking place at a place called the Union Gospel Mission. Union Gospel Mission was a Christian outreach center, missionary organization. And at the time, it didn't matter to me. I was able to go there and make music and do my thing, and it was all good. And by this time, I didn't really know what I believed as a Muslim. I just knew that my grandfather had told me I was a Muslim, and I prayed with him 5 times a day. I went to mosque as a kid and whatever. So that was it. But as I started to go to this place, I started to also get curious. And I had an uncle who was also Muslim. He was from a different sect than Sunni, not Shia. It was a different, not nation. It was something else. So I started to reach back out to him, my uncle, and he started to get me more involved in Islam. Even simultaneously, I'm going to this Christian place every day. And they were very respectful. They didn't whatever. And they ended up taking me to a camp. Now, this camp I ended up going to was a missionary camp that they take kids to. But for me, it was life-changing, life-changing. It was so good for me to be taken out of my environment into an immersive environment. By the way, I want to stop and say that if somebody, maybe Linda, somebody could be on top of the time, because I do have rabbi syndrome and I will run over the time quite possibly if somebody doesn't say, 10-minute warning, 5-minute warning or something. So please let me know, because I unfortunately don't have any clock or time in front of me. So thank you.
I'm sorry.
You gonna take?
How many times before do you want me to tell you that it's almost over?
About 10 minutes. See, I would like to take at least 10 minutes and see if we could do maybe some questions. Is there opportunity to do questions, or there's not opportunity to do questions? If you want, we could do, or if you don't.
There are thousands of people, Baruch Hashem, so I prefer that it's just what your hearts want to tell you. It's better.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so 10 minutes, if you could give me like a 10-minute warning, that'd be great.
Thanks.
So I was in an immersive environment by being in this camp where people, there's kids from all over, the U.S., mainly from like the Northwest and different things like that, California, whatever, they were coming up. And the best part about it was there was a speaker who would speak every night. And he was slowly building up to this massive altar call where people would come and, convert or become Christians or reborn again, whatever. And not at the end, but he would give over his life story very powerfully. And then at the end, he would give us a list of questions that each person will go back to his cabin with his group, and you start to explain, and talk and go over these questions. The reason why that was so good, and I would say even therapeutic, is because when you grow up in that type of in the urban environment where you're exposed to so many different things, you're never usually thinking outside of it or thinking that you'll come out of it or that you'll get out of it. You sort of just don't have any plans to some degree to escape that life or think that you could or do anything different. So the reason why this was so powerful to us, because we all had each other to talk, and this one is living the same type of life, and that one and this and that. And for the first time, we're able to discuss things as this isn't normal. This is not the only way we can live our life, and this is not. So we start to have these questions, which I found powerful. Now, every time it was cabin time, where we all were able to get together. That was my favorite part, because we're able to talk and have questions and whatever. So, and like I said before, as I mentioned about myself, I was always a deep thinker, and in different things I would suppress a lot of things and hang around with knuckleheads, but I was for sure always a deep thinker. So I enjoyed it a lot. So slowly but surely, my heart started to work on me. And after, by the end of it, I went for the altar call. I became saved, and I became reborn again Christian, even though I wasn't before, but I was reborn, right? Whatever the case is. Maybe I was a reborn person and became a Christian, whatever the case is. And they're very excited about it because it's like the thing is like, if you can, it's one thing if you can make a person uh, join your religion, but it's a whole nother thing if you can pull the guy from another religious belief. So it was like, I gave him extra points, what they believe. So, but it was very, very sweet people and individuals that even still to this day, I love and thank, because I really feel like, and genuinely feel like, if I had not had that experience at that camp, and then later on what happened, becoming more involved at the Union Gospel Mission and different things like that, until where I became a counselor and I started helping with camp and becoming involved in mission. If I didn't have that, I don't know where my life would have been, how long it would have been before I would have been, in a cemetery or in prison, God forbid. So it was a very powerful and very timely. One of the reasons why it was timely, because also in that same year, I recorded my first record, just prior to, when I was 13. I recorded my first professional song already with a big producer when I was 13 years old. So that put me in sort of like, a situation where, like, I have music. Now I found, to some degree, I found God with my friends and different things like that, whatever. And so now I'm going into high school, which is actually a picture for me and my boys in high school. And now I'm going into high school. So this gives me an opportunity. You see how much of a tough guy I look like this in this picture. I was really not a tough guy. I wasn't in any gangs, nothing. I was a captain of a football team. I was going to school, involved in Union Gospel Mission. I was a super Christian when that picture was taken. But the other guys throwing up gang signs. You see, I wasn't. I just looked the hardest because I had the hat on. It was very interesting. So by the time I was this experience happened, I'm going into high school. And I'm going into a high school that's just not a high school. This is a high school that was last in all the test scores, predominantly African American, for sure people of color. There were not, maybe I could count on a hand and a half of how many white kids maybe went to the school in the 4 years that I was there. We did not have books, textbooks. We had to protest for textbooks even. And this is a public high school. It wasn't something, whatever. It was like a place they left for dead. But somehow, in some way, as you could probably imagine, we were killer in sports. Basketball, number one in the nation, not number one in America. In high school when I was there, and in football, we were number one in our division in the city. We were amazing athletes, and so somehow, some way, it's very interesting. The budgets never had money for textbooks, but we had brand new uniforms for football and basketball, brand new stadium and all that, and no books. How that works, I don't know. But that's the type of environment, really I was going into. So I said, you know what, I'm going into high school, and they gave me another chance, the school district, to go into a regular high school. They accepted me back into the Seattle School District after, like I mentioned, I was out for the next 2 years. I failed to mention that even after that camp, I ended up my 8th grade year going to another alternative school because they wouldn't let me into this. It was very good. They had a hip hop program there in the school. So I got to write music, record music, and be involved. And it was really like a safe haven and a good place for me to be in when I was at that age. So fast forwarding, going into high school, I was experiencing this deep in my heart, not wanting to make a mistake again. I had just become, more religious Christian and whatever, and I got very, very involved, like I said, and I didn't want to make the same mistake. So I said to myself, you know what, I'm going to go in, I'm going to be a quiet kid. It's not even part of my nature, right? But I'm going to go in, I'm going to be a quiet kid. no problems, and then to cause any problems. I don't want to be Mr. Popular and all that, everything, because that's what's going to get me in trouble. Let me go in and, just chill. Then nobody will know me, and I'll be a nobody. And that way I can, whatever. So that's in my head. All that ended one day. They had a pep rally assembly, a school assembly, where they did a competition between all the different classes, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade, and they split us up and they did a series of games. One of the last things that they did right before they stopped all the games was a rap battle, where you would go on the microphone and go against another rapper and different things like that. Now, everybody in my class for sure, in the 9th grade class, knew it was like everybody says, you gotta go represent us, you know what I mean? And I'm saying, no, I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it. And people just like, nah, man, Black, you gotta go, right? So in the end, I ended up going, and it was very clear, we ended up winning. And after that, I was like so popular. After that, it became a complete and total distraction for me for the rest of my 9th grade year. And I was going against seniors, so they turned it into something they would do every Tuesday or Wednesday. I think it was Wednesday or I can't remember, Freestyle Wednesday or Tuesday. I can't remember which day of the week it was. And we'd have another rap battle in the AC room. And everybody was coming from lunch to go see, me go. And admit, I lost some, I won some. But I definitely had a whole lot more victories than the ones that I lost. And so that became like a thing. And because of that, it also distracted me a lot. So even though I was still involved at the Union Gospel Mission, the youth center there, I wasn't as involved as I had been before. Between the rapping and the football, I was also playing American football, whatever, things like that. So I found myself very occupied until one day I had a moment. This thing I mamish call a moment of, it wasn't really epiphany, but it was an amazing experience that I had. And this is already my 10th grade year in high school. I remember coming back from lunch, had some food. I came back on campus and I walked into the main hallway doors and I stopped. And something happened. What happened? I don't know what happened. I'm sorry, but people keep making requests on here. If you guys could stop making the requests, it'd be very helpful because I don't want to keep blocking. I don't know what it is, but anyway. So I started to have this feeling. I don't know how to describe it really, where I started to feel, and I looked around like I'm out of place. I don't belong here. And I don't know why I felt that. I didn't, these are people I've known, most of them my whole life since I was a kid. We all come from the same neighborhood, same whatever. But I'm looking around and something is giving me a feeling that I don't belong here. And something is telling me inside that I know something that nobody else knows. And I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what I knew, but I knew that there was a certain something that I knew, but I'm out of place. And it was a major trip out. By the way, I wasn't on any drugs. I didn't smoke or anything like that. I was already clean. I know I mentioned is tell you, like, or since I was a kid, I was smoking marijuana already by the time I was 9 years old. I was smoking weed. By the time I was 12, I was smoking it every day. I was already selling weed, So by the time, I had that experience from at least from 13 years old until, by this time, whatever, I was 16 years old, I hadn't smoked anything. I was involved in school, whatever. So I'm having a major trip out. And I cannot figure out for the life of me why I feel so out of place. And after maybe 10, 15 minutes, picked up, ate a chicken nugget, and it all went away, Maybe I was just hungry. But the feeling that I had was so strong that it made me feel like God was trying to show me something, and I didn't know what it was. So I started going back to the Union Gospel Mission even more. My 10th grade year, I got very, very involved. I ended up going to all the Bible study groups, the fellowship groups. We went on mission trips to to Mexico to help build orphanages. I got a junior missionary card. That was my smicha, and I started to go and start to sort of, whatever you say, I would sort of Makayev, I would bring people from my high school to go to this place. I was brought so many people, so many kids, that I ended up becoming the poster child for the center for the Young Gospel Mission. Literally, you would drive down, the freeway and see a big billboard of me, poster for the Young Gospel Mission. You would go to the stores and different things like that. They had big pictures of me, and then they had what else they had? I was in the magazines for some of the private Catholic schools and different things like that. So it started to really become a part of me. Like, oh no, this guy's the goody two shoes, or whatever you could say. So I started to get very involved in spiritual, and what I mean by spiritual, I became very, very spiritually connected to it. A different belief, but I did, and I started to pray a lot. When I was 16 years old, I would go and close myself in my room and just talk to God so much time. I would just spend time talking to him and praying and earnestly and different things like that. And, my friends, and some of the guys that was in the picture, would try to get me out of the box, upset me, do something, because they wanted to see that I was human, So I found myself right after this, and the next most beautiful thing that could have happened to me was that that very next summer, I ended up meeting a young woman, and that young woman, Baruch Hashem, today is my wife, and we have 6 children here. I've been with my wife since I was 17 years old. We've at least dated since 17 years old, and so we spent many years together, even in high school. And so we weren't in me and my wife, and it was a nice because we went to rival high schools. Many of them go to the same high school. She went to the opposite high school. So Hashem made me Zoga to be able to meet my wife when I was only 17 years old. So, which was a beautiful, I was 16 when we met, and then 17. When I was 15, we just got an argument about how old I was, and she won. But anyway, so this experience to that experience put me in a very interesting situation. I've been very involved in the Gospel Mission. Now, all of a sudden, the music starts to take over, and I'm recording more and more music, and it's starting to spread and get out there. So eventually, by my 11th grade year, a demo of mine made it to the desk of a talent scout for a major record label, Virgin Records. And I started to talk to this talent scout about my music. Now, one of the biggest things in the music industry at that time was a guy by the name of 50 Cent. 50 Cent was massive. And if anybody knows the record industry, what do they want? They want whatever's already working. They don't want a new thing. They want what's already working. So because of 50 Cent, gangster rap was the biggest thing that was in at the time. And they heard, obviously, from my music, I had potential. So they said to me, can maybe you send us some harder records? Because right now, these ones are great, but we really want to hear you on a harder, tougher thing, maybe some curse words, something that pull out the beast a little bit. They wanted to hear. And at the time, I really struggled. I told them, there's no way I could do this. This isn't for me. I have morals, I have values, or whatever. So shortly after this, they ended up sending over a proposal, not an actual contract, but a proposal for a contract that had $500,000 on it. As you can imagine, I started cursing very fast. Brand new songs, brand new image, everything started to change. I was 50 Cent Cheney, the second coming. So I started to put out harder records. It was more gradual than what I said, but I started to send in tougher records. And one of the things that I noticed was that the people that were around me started to shift, and they started to turn into more of the guys that, honestly, that I'd stopped hanging out with, the more and more I became involved in religion. So I started to notice that as they started to shift, and not against them, I'm being honest with you, still great guys at the heart or whatever, but they were just involved in a different lifestyle than where I, at one point, they thought I was going. So that led to even more confusion. It led to a lot of internal confusion of who I really was, because here I am now already dating this young lady that I met, and my wife to be, who was a beautiful and sweet girl and whatever. And when I was with her, right, the young gospel mission, different things like that, I started to shy away from a little bit. But when I was around her, I was one way, and then when I was around my guys, I was another way, and then I was this and that, and the music started giving me, that I had to put on this persona and to be, again, this person. It wasn't unfamiliar to me because I grew up in that type of life. I was exposed to it, and so slowly but surely, it started to become my image. And what happened is that as I started to put out more records and different things like that, it started to really trick me to some degree that this is who I am. So right around this time, Hashem's amazing hashgacha would happen to have it that one of my best friends from kindergarten, first grade, third grade, we ended up splitting schools. After that, I ended up moving to actually the Jewish neighborhood, which very close to the Jewish neighborhood. And my friend, he ended up moving to somewhere else on the west side of Seattle or whatever. And we would see each other every once in a while, periodically. But he was such a good friend that even when I was when we had to separate at the third grade or whatever, I cried. I didn't. It's an amazing thing. I think about it more spiritually. I really cried because of that friend that that I wouldn't be able to hang out with anymore and play. He was moving to one place, we were moving, and just that same year we both moved to different areas. It just happened. So we had to go to different schools. And I literally cried for a long time. I will never forget the pain and agony, understand that I was experiencing because my friend I wasn't going to be able to hang out with. So I ended up moving and going to a different school, obviously, whatever. That was when I was in elementary. And when I went to the next school, I found another really close friend or whatever, who was eventually that friend who led me to my wife. Story gets very, very crazy. So anyway, so here I am now, 17, I think it was 17 years old, and I go downstairs inside my home studio, and Hashgacha would have it that somehow, some way, in a crazy another Hashgacha story that unfortunately we don't have time, I had at this time a studio in my house. Now, it wasn't my studio per se. What happened is I told you that when I was 13 years old, I recorded a professional record with the big producer in Seattle. He was a well-known, a lot of people know who he was in the hip-hop world. And he had already, by this time, had done stuff for major people, bigger people. He needed a place to move his studio. Our house had just been brand new, so he moved in with us. And my dad at the time, he told me, said, listen, you can have the whole basement turned into a studio under one condition. You teach my son everything you know. So I got to learn everything, how to mix, master, write music, how to do everything down there, from learning from him. And he would bring in clients, some bigger, some smaller. And I had a studio in my house, and I got to learn how to work everything. So, but because of that, we had different people coming all the time. So at 17 years old, I walked downstairs to go into the production room, and there's a guy over there making music. And I hear it, I'm like, wow, sounds really good. And I hear him, and he hears me moving around the back. He goes, hey, is that your CD right there? And it said my name on there. At the time, my name, go by Nissim Black. He said, and he goes, I'm BJ. Was my best friend from kindergarten. And we hugged each other. We've seen each other over the years. Every once in a while, we would, run into each other whenever I was in West Seattle and something like that. And we had gone on a long gap. We hadn't seen each other, whatever. And we hugged, and we like mama, embraced each other. And we were so excited to see each other. And we both were doing music. I had no idea he was doing, we hadn't talked to each other in years. So he was doing music. I was doing music. And I'm a rapper. He's a producer. It's all Hashem. He makes music. I rap the music, whatever. So He didn't leave. He stayed at my house maybe one night, two nights in a row. He ended up he called his mother, I'm staying here, whatever. We by this time we're both, not going to school as much or whatever. And Hashem reunited me and my best friend. And what was interesting about everything is that through me, he ended up meeting, my wife had a younger sister that he ended up dating. So it all comes full circle. Fast forward a bit. I end up losing my mother. My mother was 37 years old. She died of a addiction that she had to narcotics, to drugs. And it was one of the most devastating things that happened to me because me and my mother were really, really close. But what happened afterwards is that I went full force into the music. I was so much pain that I had to just numb myself and not think about it. So I started writing more and more and more music, and I got more and more just involved. I went to major record companies and labels, and everybody turned me down. I came back so fiercely determined to make something happen. We started to do everything independent. We were selling CDs up and down and getting it out there as much. And little by little, it started to spread. And we started a fire. And by the time it got going, it went very, very fast. Major news and media outlets was covering the story. Then they found out on my parents. One major detail I forgot to leave out. My parents actually were the first rappers. My mother was a rapper and my father was a rapper in the 1980s. They started just a year or two after rap was first came out, and they were a part of the very first rap group in Seattle. So then that became a bigger part of the story. Hold on, who's this kid? He's the son of so-and-so or whatever. So it started making big noise and different things like that. By this time, my father, my biological father, who I wasn't living with because my mother had remarried, had made a major 360 changes like completely. And even as we stand today, he is a professor, pastor, theologian. He heads the addiction program for faith-based organization. So he had, by this time, had already made a major change. So I always, say that I think more so maybe in an indirect way, seeing him change his life had a lot of hashpah, a lot of, had a big effect also on me. Some of it directly from conversations even that we had had. But so now here I am spreading this new music and all this. I have this new persona. I'm harder. I'm whatever. I put out all this new music, and as it starts to spread and it catches fire, not only do you get lovers, but you also get people that ain't gonna love it, and you also get other people that want to seize and take other opportunities. Just a part of what happens. So there was another rapper who decided that, maybe as an attempt for PR, people were doing it. I don't fault him at all and only wish him the best success, whatever. He made a song about me, disrespecting me. Now, at this time, was not the time to do this. I'm running around with guys that, they're not just rapping about what's going on in these songs. You know what I'm saying? These guys are actually involved. So my team at the time were very overprotective of me, the guys that I was around, because everybody knew I was also a very peaceful person. I was never starting things that trying to be the person to whatever. So I was generally a peaceful person. So make a long story short, this altercation escalates into a kill or be killed situation. We get into a big brawl at a nightclub. I leave. I get a call that a friend tells me that the police are looking for you. So I'm like, for what? Later on, I end up finding out they weren't looking for me. They're looking for a friend who tried to go and kill him after I had already left the scene. They found out after they took him, the guys that were there who were shot at, the other rapper, they thought that I sent him to shoot him. And I didn't, but they thought that I did. So, of course, what do you think? They're going to have to come and take my life. And it put me in a situation where I, for the first time, am thinking that if I don't go and kill this other person, he's going to come and try to kill me. So I found myself broken and heartbroken. I didn't know what I was going to do. And I remember sitting in my living room, falling to my knees, and I asked, how did I get here? How did I get here from the guy that was involved in religion and praying and 16, how did I all of a sudden get to this place? And I made a serious cheshbon nefesh, and I cried, praying. And after some time, 2 days, whatever, I get a call from the other guy, and it was a miracle. I always say it's a miracle because when you grow up in that type of society, guys don't call to see if, maybe you're trying to kill them or something like that. It's a very serious situation, and I feel like Hashem's Hashgacha allowed to soften his heart enough to call to find clarity. And after this clarity is exactly when I realized for myself that this is not the type of life I wanted to live. So after I got off the phone, spending more and more time, I started to pray. I just fell into a state of prayer, day in, day out, walking back and forth in my living room. I didn't even want to go outside. I was just praying. I was so thankful that God had saved the situation that I started to pray. After some time of spending so much time in prayer, I started to think back to when I was that young kid in Bible study group. And I realized, you know what? I had a lot of questions then because I was reading my Bible so much that I would take it and highlight it so much that there was no point of even highlighting it because the whole entire thing had highlights all over it. So I was very, very, at least well versed, to say the least, inside the Bible, whatever the Christian Tanakh and also the Christian scriptures. So I started to pick up the Bible and I started to read it. And I started to be reminded of all those questions that I had. And I thought, I grew up in a Jewish neighborhood, just about. I was inside the Eru for sure. I did have a Jewish experience down on my side. It was a little rougher by my side at the end of it, but for sure, I used to walk through a shul, when I would go to school, ride my bike in the back of another shul. I was, in the shul. And I started to think, you know what? I have to find the answers to my questions. JC was Jewish. How come Christians are not Jewish? Which religion came first? My grandpa was a Muslim. How did Muslims come to be? Which one was, simple. I started to look up and find out that, this happened and what, So I started to look up everything that I could on the internet. And I started to find more and more information on the separation between Christianity and Judaism. And I decided, I said, you know what? Why do I believe this? Why do I believe what I believe? Let's take everything to trial. Everything goes to trial right now. And I started to look into early Christianity, and I started to go and dig up the text and going very, very deep. And I started to see, first thing was the holidays. Well, this is inconsistent because if the Bible already says there's holidays, then how do we get to Christmas? How do we get to Easter? Where all these things come from? Well, they come from pagan. Well, it says in Deuteronomy here that you're not allowed to take the pagan ways of the nation and then do those things and take them on together. So what's the story here? So I started going very, very deep into this, to dedicate church fathers, different things like that. And I wanted to know what the Quran says. So before you knew it, I had these different texts from different Christian Bibles, Jewish texts, JPS Tanakh, and I'm going through all these different texts 8 hours a day. 8 hours a day I was spending time going through these different texts and crying and begging God for the truth, really praying for the truth. I often say that when people search, there's one of three reasons why a person searches. One reason why a person searches is because maybe they don't like they have a type, or they have a desire for something, and they're willing to go and find something different, a different religion, or something that allows them to keep the taiva, right? Even atheism, that's a religion, kafir. But and then there's other reasons, is that, okay, I've accepted so much of what the world says is true that when I can read something in the Torah that contradicts it, I can't accept it because I've already accepted what the world said is true. So now I need to go find something else, some new religion, some new philosophy that fits what I said is already okay because I've already accepted. I was makabel from the world. But then there's a third time, the most accurate search, and this is where I was mamish in this state where a person searches for the truth. And what I mean by this, searching for the truth, meaning that there's no strings attached. That if I find something that hits that nakuda of emes, is going to hit that point of truth for me, then whatever it is, I'm going to submit and give over my whole entire life to that truth because I'm after it. I wasn't looking for a new religion. I wasn't looking for Judaism. I wasn't looking for, I was just looking for God. What is the truest manifestation of yourself that you could possibly give me? So I'm sitting there 8 hours a day going through all these different texts, and it wasn't enough. I would study and go through different things, videos on YouTube. I was looking up everything I can, Sharm, and whatever the case is. I'm going through all these things, and it's like a fire. I was running my head and brain until the nighttime. I couldn't even barely think. I would have to sit down and go to sleep or whatever. Wake up, do it again. Then I started fasting. I would go 3 days in a row with no food, and I would go out and cry to Hashem. I didn't know about breast love. He's voted this. I seen David Amelech lost his son. He started praying. He was fasting. I seen this one started fasting. Daniel was fast. So I said, listen, this is what's happening to people. They want the answers. They go and they fast. So I started fasting 3 days in a row, this time and that time and that time. So I found myself in a place after that of feeling very, very spiritually sensitive, very, very open. My heart was so open and it was so sensitive and looking for the truth, that every conversation, and I can't begin to tell you, it's no way to explain to you the amount of hashgacha pratit that was happening in my life at the time, that was leading me to every answers, any thought that I had on another question that I wanted to search or whatever, I was finding it inside the Tanakh, the Torah, whatever. It was always answering me. Simple text messages. Somebody would message me something out of the blue, and it would be like, I'm telling you, I was mamish in a place of spiritual sensitivity that up until the time I never experienced before. To make a long story short, I started to tell my wife some of the things that I was learning, and she wanted a divorce. She thought I was crazy. My wife thought I grew up in some type of she grew up. She thought I was becoming nuts. She had no idea what was going on, and I told her I didn't want to do Easter, Christmas, and all that. She's like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa! We just got married. We've been together for years, but then we finally got married. And we just had our first child." And everything, and so she's like, he's flipping the script. What's going on? But shortly after, her and I started to learn. And as I told you before, my best friend was already dating my sister-in-law. So, in which they got married a year after we did. And before you knew it, it was just the four of us. So we're on an island alone, and we're reading the text and reading this Torah. It's talking about the Sabbath. It's talking about Shabbos. That's Saturday. That ain't Sunday. It's on Saturday. What do we do? So Torah says you're not allowed to work. So I stopped doing the dishes, Baruch Hashem. And later on, I found out you're able to do dishes. I was a little disappointed about it. But anyway, so we found the congregation that was a Messianic place first, Jews for JC. And this place was really good for me. It was very good because it opened me up to Judaism even more. At this time, I'm just reading the Bible and I see that Hashem loves Israel, He loves the Jewish people, and it's all great and I'll find it, Danny. Oh yeah, but I also believe in this. I ended up going to this Messianic congregation that was very, very more traditional. They did a lot of stuff that was Orthodox. They would daven out of Art Scroll Sidurim, people on Shninders. You walk in the big Knesset, look like a real shul, real Sefer Torah, not a real Sefer Torah, everything. And they were very, very, it was a different exposure for me. So in order to catch up to this place, I had to start really looking into Judaism more to match the things I was learning at this place. So I ended up going to the thing and I started typing in more Jewish things. And what happened? Anything I typed in, Chabad.org came up, no matter what. I type in Michael Jackson, Chabad.org comes up, right? So I ended up going on Chabad.org. And there was one video that changed everything for me. Chabad had did a video, and they don't know. I don't know who produced it. And if anybody ever knows, I hope the story gets out. I've told it before, but I hope it gets out because I want to know who produced it and thank the person myself because it was life changing. What was it? It was Shabbos. we had no idea really what to do on Shabbos up until we started going to this place. So I started learning a little bit more halach or whatever. What does it look like? What is it? What is Shabbos? I haven't been to Shabbos yet. And they had a 20-minute video on Shabbos, and they showed everything from the tables and the challah and the yain and kiddush and what to do. And I was sitting there watching this video. You don't understand. I used to watch this video more than once, and I start crying like a baby, crying like a baby, and have a yearning. I had a yearning so bad to keep Shabbos. So I started immediately. I found it out where I could go get challah, and it was non-kosher, but I found out where I could get challah, and I found out where I could go get, grape juices. I started manishevet, and I started making the table nice and all that. And that changed everything just from the point of knowing that Shabbos was supposed to feel like and what it's supposed to experience. So I went back on Chabad.org. I used to watch a lot of, Rabbi Mendel Kaplan videos, Rabbi Krasniansky. I started learning Tanya, and my head is like opening up to like, wow, this stuff there's a depth there, whatever. And so the more and more I started to learn, I started to learn halacha. I started learning halacha. Now I'm starting to see from the halacha the fiery words of the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch and different things like that. And by this time, it's me, my wife, my sister-in-law, and my best friend. All of a sudden, we start strengthening each other. And we were at this place, the congregation, for about 2 years. And then after that, we realized for ourselves. I ran into a rabbi from Toronto at one of the conferences. Two rabbis, Rabbi Eli Cohen, he was a Chabad rabbi, and Rabbi Michael Skobach, Mayor Skobach, and for Jews for Judaism. And that's, their job. They follow these messianic places. And for the first time, I had rabbis there that knew the Christian scriptures well enough that I could ask all these things that I had serious kashas on. Had a wonderful experience talking with them, and it clarified so much to what I was feeling and everything that I ended up not going back to the congregation. We davened at home for a little bit. My wife said to me, you know what? I really feel like I want to be Jewish. I want to do a conversion. And I was so excited because she had the feeling herself. She wanted to come to it on her own. We were growing together. And she said at first, I was a little hesitant because I thought to myself, I said, you know what? I grew up in a Jewish neighborhood. And I seen Jews in black, but I never seen black ones, And Hashem's hashgacha was real. I'm telling you, it was real. That I ended up in a grocery store shopping, and in between the beeps, I heard Shabbat Shalom, brother. And I turn around, and it's a black Yid, and he's standing there with the biggest grin on his face. He invites us for Shabbos. We end up going to his house for Shabbos. And the same week we were on our way to his house for Shabbos, I ran into another Yid. We were having a conversation. They knew each other. They were mispalo at the same synagogue. So we already had another place to go for the next Shabbos after that. So slowly but surely we grew. We ended up talking to some of the people there, the rabbis, introduced to a rabbi. We ended up moving into the neighborhood. All four of us, all of us, both families had one child at the time, and we literally grew and pushed each other and Baruch Hashem. Right before, it's a beautiful thing. One last story to close everything out. Initially, as we started to grow, the rabbi had told us that, when we first moved in, the neighborhood was very expensive by this time we moved into to move to the Jewish area of the neighborhood. So we ended up getting a house altogether. So by the time it got closer to us going to the Beis Din, the rabbi called us in for a meeting, and he said, Baruch Hashem, is great. You guys love each other, and you guys can stand each other enough to live in the same place. He said, but we have a problem. Because you guys are two separate families, and 9 times out of 10, you're going to go to the Beis Din separately. If one family finishes the conversion before the other family, then you're going to have a problem with kashrus. You're going to have with the one cooking in the kitchen. When it comes to the Yamim Tovim, what are you going to do also too? So he says, I think it's best if you guys find your own place. So Hashem would arrange that we will find our own place. They stayed in that house, and everything worked out. And finally, the day comes for us to go to the Beis Din. My family ended up going first. Hashem is moving the thread the whole entire time, because what happens? Right after my family finishes, the day after we finish it, a few days later, my brother and sister-in-law was supposed to go the next month. They were only taking candidates for Garris to come to the Beis Din once a month. Hashem had arranged the Hashgacha to happen in such a way that my brother and sister-in-law, something happened in Kashrus, and my brother and sister-in-laws only went a few more days after we had finished instead of the next month. The Av Beis Din was so, Baruch Hashem, impressed with both families and our growth and everything that we were doing, that he said, this is the most amazing thing, and I think we should do both families together. So Baruch Hashem, 7 years, almost going on 8 years ago, both me, my best friend, and our wives, which are sisters, were Magaya together with, I think we both had 2 children. We went to the mikvah, Baruch Hashem, on the same day. And after that, maybe a week or so and a half later, we had a double wedding. Both families, both sisters were married on the same day, Baruch Hashem. We were married, and then they ended up getting married right after us, and it was a double wedding, and the whole community came out. It was an amazing experience. People that were not as affiliated with the community to people that were very affiliated with the community, wide range of people. Everybody came all to this wedding and pulled together and put on this wedding for us. We didn't have the means to do it, so thank you to Beth Balcony, who actually led the way, and the Russ Sachs and Sets, and the people that came together to put together our wedding there. And Rabbi Benzikin, who was the Tzaddik Kedushin, he was also our rabbi who led us through this conversion process, who became like really a father to both families. Him and his wife, Cecilia, took us in unlike anything. And Baruch Hashem, the story really should be wrapped up in that. Baruch Hashem, after our conversion, it was maybe two, I think 2.5 years later, that we all decided, which is its own seaport in itself, to move to Eretz Yisrael, both families together. Thank God that a good friend of mine, Larry Russack, had taken me to Israel to experience it in 2013, and I was so determined to get back there to move that Baruch Hashem, my wife and my sister-in-law moved, both of them, sight unseen. We moved to Eretz Yisrael. We didn't know what was going to be with Parnassa. I didn't even have an apartment when I moved here. And we told Nefesh B'Nefesh we're moving into to one place. It failed, and we got on the ground and started looking for an apartment. After we got here, my brother and sister-in-law didn't have clothes. They moved with the clothes they had on their back. And Baruch Hashem, we came here with both our families. And now we are here, one building apart from each other. We have kids. Everybody see each other from the Marpesit. And we're enjoying ourselves. Kids are in beautiful schools and in a wonderful community here, Baruch Hashem. And I want to tell everybody that I think the main thing you could take out from this story, and my story is the fact that the way something begins doesn't mean it's the way that it will end. The person should never give up, and whatever you're doing, especially when it comes to Avodas Hashem, and it comes to serving Hashem and giving your heart over to Hashem. Never allow people or things or anything to get in your way. You have to have Azus Dikdusha and to keep going, fight, to never give up, because no matter what, Hashem in the end is only after you're benefiting, the only once you're good, and only good things are going to come out of it. So be determined, be strengthened, and don't allow other people to bring you down. If I would have listened to how many people told me, wow, you're going to be Jewish, wow, you're going to go to Orthodox, oh, you're going to be, I wouldn't be here. We got to learn how to put our head down and go for Hashem and go for the goal. So I want to bless all of you, Bezat Hashem, that you will all be strengthened in your Yiddishkeit. Hopefully the story was helpful to somebody. For me, I was rambling. I'll be honest with you, I did not sleep last night. I went to a living tzaddik last night. I came home, my kids didn't go to sleep. I had made arrangements to go up north, so by the time I had to go daven Nates. My friend came to pick me up. I went up north, and by the time I came back, my son had to see him. And after the see him directly, I had just an interview with Mishpacha. And after Mishpacha, I'm on with you guys. I literally have not slept. Even in the car, I tried to go to sleep. I couldn't because my friend was talking to me. We're talking to each other. So I put all my koach into this bracha that all of you should be strengthened in your Yiddishkeit, should be zoket to have true devekus to Hashem. You should be zoket to have amunah shlema, and all of us together by amunah shlema should be zoket to be mamshik, the mamish, the base of mikdash, and Mashiach should come and be whatever you name. Thank you so much. I'll close, I guess, with a little bit of piece of a song. The kids are already trying to come in and get me. Song million years, huh?
Something.
Yeah, I'm gonna sing just a little bit.
That's great. It doesn't look like if you didn't sleep at all. They're writing me that you make them cry, and it was just great. Thank you so much. We knew that you had coronavirus. And
yes.
How have you been of health? How's everything? Everything is okay, Baruch Hashem?
Everything. Listen, I'm gonna tell you this also too. You should know this. I just came off of bidud quarantine. I went in to the hospital, and I mean, first thing, I got sick on the beginning of the 3 weeks, on Wednesday. We just got off of quarantine. I was out of the hospital. Last Erev Shabbos is when they released me from the hospital. I am still in bidud with my family in quarantine for, I think already we're at the whole 3 weeks. They let us out right after Tisha B'Av for Shabbos Nachamu. We were out of quarantine. I've had a lot of ups and downs with the virus, even afterwards or whatever. And I'm telling you, I did not sleep last night. From last night until this morning, it's been the best I have felt since I had the virus. And Baruch Hashem, I feel great, feel amazing. I've recovered. My wife has recovered, Baruch Hashem, and we're doing very well. But to go from a place where I thought like it's scary, I may die, to be able to be back home with my family and to give chesed. I came from the hospital. I recorded 8 brand new songs since I came out. I came out with a fire, and I'm fired up. So Baruch Hashem, thank you so much.
Baruch Hashem, we can feel your fire, Baruch Hashem, in this. Thank you so much. So we want to hear you a little bit.
Okay.
And
okay, so I'll do a small little piece really quickly, and then I'm going to go get the kids in the shower.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for everything. We're going to hear.
Thank you. It's my hope that I know you. It's my desire that I show you. Gratitude that I owe you. Because I was in that Klippa's no-go until you came and dust off and revealed my spark. I was searching for the essence of existence, wanted to find you, but I didn't see an entrance. I came from a distance where everything was different, and I called out to you, and you showed me that you listened. From then, we became best friends, and I gave my all to you, and you showed me who I am. And so I am praying by your side to bask in your light and your mercy. I reside. I won't let go, even in a million years. You're there when I'm up, there when I'm down, and so I'm staying here. I won't let go, even in a million years. You're there when I'm up, you're there when I'm down, and so I'm staying here. Thank you guys so much.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Only brachas, all the best. Thank you to everybody that wrote in. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. May God bless you. Bueno, a todos quiero darles otra vez las gracias. Les vamos a poner un videoclip de Nissim Black en donde cuentan nada más, o sea, su sentimiento de cuando encontró a Hashem, más bien cuando lo estaba buscando, lo que sentía. Con esto me despido, vamos a dejarlo puesto, espero que lo disfruten porque realmente nos deja mucho para nuestra vida y como siempre les digo, ojalá la siguiente semana no haya este evento porque llegue el Mashiach, pero si no, por aquí nos vemos con otra historia impresionante. Muchas gracias, Shabbat Tov Mevorach.
I feel like I'm running in the world on my own, down and out. Please help, I need you. My heart aches, I can't take it. No, I know that you're here right now, but you hide your face, and I can't wait to see you. My God, I see you. I know that I'm imperfect, but I know that it hurts when in my life I don't feel you. I become another person. It ain't worth it, no. Fix me, only give me what I need to proceed to the place I should be. Open up the gates and make a wait on me. God, please help me, 'cause I'm low and falling down, and I need you to pull me out, 'cause I just wanna go, yeah. And I want you to take control, yeah. And have mercy on me. Will you pick me up again? Will you pull me closer in, 'cause I just wanna know, yeah. And I want you to bring me closer, yeah. There's times when I feel down and out and I can't figure out why you do it to me, yeah. I'm surrounded on all sides, yeah. I try to get back up, but I find that I fall maybe harder than before, yeah. God, I'm in war, yeah. I feel I can't get up now, 'cause every time I fall down, I'm fighting the enemy, and it won't let me break out. Heal me, wanna give me what I need to proceed to the place I should be. Open up the gates and make a wait on me. God, please help me, 'cause I'm low and falling down, and I need you to pull me out, 'cause I just wanna go, yeah. And I want you to take control, yeah. And have mercy on me. Will you pick me up again? Will you pull me closer in, 'cause I just wanna know, yeah. And I want you to bring me closer, yeah. I can feel you in my heart only sometimes, but I need you in my life right now, yeah. Can't move without you, I'm full of doubts, yeah. Show me what I can do when I only want you, when I only want truth, my king, yeah. You are my only help, yes, you are my only help. 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 God, please help me, 'cause I'm low and falling down, and I need you to pull me out, 'cause I just wanna go, yeah. And I want you to take control, yeah. And have mercy on me. Will you pick me up again? Will you pull me closer in, 'cause I just wanna know, yeah. And I want you to bring me closer. God, please help me, 'cause I'm low and falling down, and I need you to pull me out, 'cause I just wanna go, yeah. And I want you to take control, yeah. And have mercy on me. Will you pick me up again? Will you pull me closer in, 'cause I just wanna know, yeah. And I want you to bring me closer, yeah.